2011, popular protests in Egypt ousted President Hosni Mubarak, whose departure from power marked the end of over 60 years of secular dictatorship in the country. Those protesting for his removal comprised mostly of young Egyptians, youth disillusioned by political corruption and high unemployment rates. Thousands of Egyptians gathered in Tahrir Square to protest for Mubarak's departure, demanding for democratic freedoms. Following Egypt's first free elections, however, the promise of democracy began to crumble. After only a little over a year in office, President Mohamed Morsi was deposed by the Egyptian military. The Egyptian people once again gathered, as they had in 2011, to protest the ouster of Morsi, a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Egypt's current president, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, has been severely cracking down on Morsi supporters and members of the Muslim Brotherhood since he came to power. With the tumultuous political environment, journalism and free speech have become contentious subjects in Egypt. The multiple regime changes in the past 4 years have resulted in a shifting journalistic landscape.
Depending on the climate in Egypt in the years since then, the foreign media has either been embraced and applauded or reviled and hated. So it really has kind of, it depends on who's in power at the time and whether they see an advantage to the international media being present and what they're reporting, and whether or not they see an advantage to vilifying the international media.
According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, Egypt is currently the 6th leading jailer of journalists in the world, following behind China, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Vietnam, and Syria. As of December 2014, there were 221 jailed journalists worldwide and 12 in Egypt. On December 29, 2013, 3 journalists from Al Jazeera English, Peter Gresti, Mohammed Fahmy, and Bahar Mohammed, were arrested by the Egyptian government, accused of supporting and aiding the banned Muslim Brotherhood, Morsi's political party. In June 2014, after a 4-month trial, Gresti and Fahmy were sentenced to 7 years in prison. Mohammed was sentenced to 10. After more than a year in prison, Gresti was released, and Fahmy and Mohammed were granted bail pending a retrial. The case of Gresti, Fahmy, and Mohammed garnered an immense social media response in the Western world. Hashtag #FreeAJStaff became a worldwide social media campaign to free the 3 journalists, and many see the journalists' release as a way to quell the international uproar. While the case of the Al Jazeera journalists was brought to the forefront of news outlets, the cases of the remaining 9 imprisoned journalists in Egypt has remained largely unexplored by the media. Of the remaining 9 imprisoned journalists, all are Egyptian. 3 are charged with being anti-state, and 2 others work for media outlets that support the Muslim Brotherhood.
As international reporters, we get, in some respects, more protection from our companies and kind of our international recognition sometimes. Doors will open sometimes for us to governments, to interviews, to government officials. But on the flip side of it, we get targeted in places like Syria with kidnapping. The local journalists will suffer exponentially more repression at the hands of their governments, respective governments, than guys like me who parachute in for a couple weeks or a couple days, without question.
Since the 2011 revolution that rallied the Egyptian people under the call for democratic freedom, the number of imprisoned journalists has only increased, with 5 jailed in 2013 and 12 in 2014. In light of these facts, what could be said of the movement 4 years later?
Peace!